Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Endless Celts Podcast, the award content up for an award of the Football Content Awards. I still don't know how. I'll say
Oh,
after I bought that intro there, but yeah, delighted to be joined by the poet. Back to the old days, Tony, a duo of the poet and myself. How you doing, Anthony?
the Captain and the Poet. What a book that would be, mate. Very well, like you say. Nominated by the people, mate. So, the people, they've obviously clearly got good taste. So, as I say, probably got more chance of us winning the European Cup than us lot winning the actual award. But hey, we're in the mix, just like
Uh,
Celtic. So why not?
a hu- 100%, mate. And as you said, it's all tongue in cheek. That award that we're nominated for, we greatly appreciate it. But our chances of winning are probably slim to none. But hey ho, we're there anyway. We're in the mix, and if you're not in the mix, you can't win. But Tony, how's your week been? Have you up to much?
Not too bad, mate. I was off last week for the school holidays, so back to reality this week, and work's just as usual. Busy self. And as I said, was saying to you before we went on air, I'm still not quite got the Friday feeling because I'm back in tomorrow. But yeah, it's all good. It's been a wee while since I've been on a Friday night, so thought might as well let's do it.
100%. And I'm on the Coors Light. I'm sure the slagging I would get off yous would be astronomical if we were all in the same room for me drinking this beer. But as you said, you mentioned the European Cup, now named the Champions League. Celtic were in action over in Italy against Atalanta, formidable opponents. And I got into the game. You know yourself has suffered that horrendous defeat in Germany at the hands of Borussia Dortmund 7-1, and that we saw them get beat. Was it 5-2 by Real Madrid in their corresponding fixture this week? Funny enough, and signs get into it before we get into the actual game. All the pundits, all the football experts were talking about how Atalanta were a far more impressive team than Dortmund, the Europa League winners. I think they drew Arsenal this season, I believe. I think they
Yeah.
might have beat Liverpool last season at their home ground as well. So, I mean, how were you feeling getting into that game? Was it behind the sofa job? What was it for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, obviously after the kind of lesson we were handed out in Dortmund, it's not our first rodeo, mate. We've seen this script before, and especially with Carter Vickers, being ruled out on the Tuesday as well. It was a strange situation though because, and as I say, I didn't actually see the game live because Jude trains on a Wednesday night, and his training is from 6 o'clock till 7:15. But obviously, the drive there means that you can't watch it either, and the little pub across the road from where the train wasn't shown it either. And East Calder's not exactly a satellite hotbed, so there's no point trying to get a link or anything on your phone because it always just buffers. So it was one of the ones that I knew I wasn't going to see it, so maybe not quite as fully the trepidation that I normally would be. But once I'd parked up, I'd heard that it was following you guys in the chat. I knew it was nothing each, and so I just decided I was like, right, I'm not going to. I'm going. I went for a walk, kept my phone in my pocket, and when Jude and I got back, we didn't listen to it on the radio or whatever, but we thought the game would have finished, but forgetting things were on a minute or two behind. And just as we turned the telly on, hoping we would be seeing Brendan's post-match presser, it was at 93 minutes, just as Atalanta got the corner, and we thought, oh no, hopefully we're not going to jinx anything here. But and thankfully we didn't. But I think that's the problem. Like you were saying about all the experts before the game, they were doing a hell of a lot of talking before it, Stephen. And of course, 2 weeks ago, Talksport opened their mid-morning show discussing the Dortmund Celtic result. Funnily enough, they couldn't even bring themselves to mention it on Thursday morning. So it's very strange that when you lose to the Champions League finalists heavily, you get front page billing. But when you get a draw with the only team that were good enough to beat Bayer Leverkusen last season, it doesn't even warrant a mention. So that just kind of sums up, really. If ever was a way of symbolising how the media treats Celtic when it comes to Europe, then that was the perfect display of that, really. But as I say, for us fans, and it's great for I would imagine that quite a lot of the fans that travelled to Dortmund would have travelled to Atalanta as well. So that was a nice little payback. Obviously, we're always going to be on the back foot against a team as talented as Atalanta, especially being away from home. But I thought all the players stuck to their tasks. On another night, you just never know that Peter Casper Schmeichel had to keep his it was a brilliant defensive display, and he was fantastic between the sticks as well. On another night, we do take a hiding, but maybe just everything went against us 2 weeks ago. Maybe it was just time for us to get a wee slice of luck as well. And I thought all the players stuck to their task absolutely brilliantly. And we've got the 3 points from the first game, which is shown to be really vital. We've now played, as I say, the Champions League finalists away from home. We've played the Europa League winners away from home. And after 3 games, we're sitting with 4 points right in the mix. And, I think probably, a couple of months ago when the draw was made, if somebody said we'd be sitting going into 2 home games with 4 points in the bag already, I think we would have been more than happy. So, a really good night, productive, but not just in terms of the prestige, but obviously a few more bob in the bank as well. So, good night all round.
100%. And strange of the doctor, I was dreading the Atalanta game. I rate them as a better footballing side than Dortmund. I'd keep my mouth shut for the entire build-up. And to be fair, do you know what annoys me as well? We're talking about, we'll come on to the game, obviously, but we're talking about the media aspect of things. And on the way back from the Grandas, where I was watching the football match, I put on Sports Sound, and they were dissecting it after the game, talking about how Celtic played. And I can't remember, is it Richard Gordon, the host of Sports Sound now? I can't remember. Yeah, so he was talking, and he started going down the road of maybe Atalanta aren't the powerhouses that people think they are, and that's why Celtic got the draw. That's why Celtic performed well. And I think it took McFadden to chirp in and was like, no, you have to give credit where it's due here. Celtic have went to Italy. They've had a back against the wall job. They've defended well. They were steely. They were determined. They had the right attitude, the right mental capacity to see that result through. Obviously, paraphrasing a lot of what he's saying, but it's like the Slovan Bratislava game as well. It was downplayed so much because they weren't of a high stock. They weren't of a a Madrid or a Barcelona, the shock results that we're used to as Celtic fans, and the media always downplay that. And it just annoys me because, like you said, the likes of Conde, I mean, the Dilly Record, the Dilly Ranger, as McGranda calls it, as soon as we get a heavy defeat in Europe, we're pounced on, we're labelled as liabilities, as embarrassments. And when we come away with a result in Italy, that, by the way, Arsenal were held there, Liverpool, I think, were held there. The Atalanta, the only team that beat an unbeaten Bayer Leverkusen side in Germany in the Europa League final. And it's like, it's downplayed. It's almost like the media were hyping Atalanta up to smash us, and it didn't happen. Neither reverting to maybe they're not good enough, maybe they're just not that right quality. But instead of actually heaping the praise on Celtic, I just find that a bit fucked up.
Whether it be the media north or south of the border, mate, they twist it. And I think Brendan, like you say, paraphrasing as well, he kind of said that it doesn't matter what Celtic do or don't do in Europe, it's always twisted to suit a negative agenda. And he's absolutely bang on. Like you say, you put it out there. Yeah, I think it did finish a draw between Atalanta and Liverpool in Bergamo, but we forget Atalanta had went to Anfield and turned Liverpool over last year during Klopp's, final hurrah. Like you say, drew with Arsenal, won the Europa League. I mean, these guys are, and I think, I might be wrong in this, but I think they were saying that they're at the moment the highest scoring team in Italy as well. So I think maybe one or two players from that won the cup, that played in the cup final team, have moved on, but they're still a terrific side. And like I say, 2 weeks ago or 3, but whenever it was the opening game, the press were full of praise for Arsenal's defensive, how sort of organised they were, and how this is what was always Arteta's letdown, but perhaps he's going to have boring Arsenal at the back, but the free-flowing attacking, guys like Odegaard and Saka, etc., going forward, but how they deserve so much praise for the defensive display. But yet, somehow when it's a team like us, obviously we're a far bigger club than Arsenal, but we don't have the financial resources that they do. When we pull off the exact same result, it's literally brushed under the carpet because and didn't get a mention at all. But as I say, they don't like it when we're successful. They hate to. It's and you're going to hate that I'm bringing this example up, mate. It's like, and I think you might know where I'm going. It's like when Winston says to Stevie in Still Game, you hate it when I win and you love it when I lose. That's literally what that's what the media are like to Celtic. That's the way I've always seen it. And this week was no exception. But listen, they can keep ignoring us all they want. As Brendan says, we'll write our own story.
You can keep the Stevie to the bookie chat to yourself.
Last Monday night, I promise.
We're not going to Pomley Pardons in the chat. I'll never hear the end of it. But you talked about defensive displays, and I mean, if we looked at the lineup, a lot of people get into the game were a bit apprehensive and anxious, including myself, of Trusty and Scales both being left-sided. Alex Valle only really bedding himself into the team. A lot of pressure on him, young shoulders. And then obviously AJ, he's a stalwart at right back. But I mean, get into the game, Brendan Rodgers talked about not changing his style, being that kind of aggressive on the front foot, pressing high, winning the ball high, trying to create opportunities from that. And I mean, people are saying he hoodwinked Atalanta and he hoodwinked their manager. He did to a certain extent, I believe, with his comments. But what I will say was, if Celtic took more care of the ball in the final third and maybe weren't panicked and didn't have that naive attitude that, I mean, Celtic have at the moment at the top level. We're not used to that competition with our players and things of that nature. That'll come with time. But there was times in the first half and even more so in the second half, if we took care of the ball a wee bit more, we were in a couple of passes and the right decisions we were in. So we still had opportunities. It wasn't like we were getting peppered at every opportunity. We were breaking up the pitch and we're causing issues. And if you bring it back to the defensive side before we go on to the attacking side of the game, I mean, we'll have to talk about the back four. As I mentioned, there are two left-sided defenders. Let's talk about Trusty first and foremost. He has been given a lot of criticism since he's come in for certain things. I think Rodgers talked about this today. He's played all his games at Celtic in his own favourite position on the right side because Carter Vickers has been injured. He's had to be thrown in at the deep end in the Champions League against Dortmund. You could tell that, I mean, the majority of the team weren't at that level when the star players never turned up, including Trusty. And I thought that the game that against Atalanta, it's not people say the making of a player or that he's going to be a world beater for the rest of the season. He's had one good game, but it's been an excellent game. You can't predict what's going to happen in the future. But I just think everything that went into that box, he headed away. His recovery pace, I mean, Lookman was causing issues down the right-hand side. He was covering Alistair Johnson all the time. I think even Rodgers spoke about that today in his press conference. And I just thought, yes, we miss Carter Vickers. Obviously, he's the Colossus at the back. He's the rock. But Trusty came in. It took him a while maybe to find his feet, obviously playing out of position, but that performance will do him the world of good.
I absolutely will, mate. As I said, I haven't heard Ollie Brendan's press conference today, but I did see the little bit when he was talking about the power in his header and, you know, the athleticism that Trusty has. And like you said, he wouldn't be the first centre-half to come to Celtic and maybe not be, you know, not everybody can just slot into the team the way that, you know, a Carter Vickers can or a Virgil van Dijk. You know, Carl Starfelt, one of the most perfect examples of a bit of a shaky start, but he found his feet eventually, and him and Carter Vickers were a very robust partnership at the back. Trusty's came in, like you say. I think he got his first game in the Falkirk match, and obviously it was, you know, lots of changes for that game, maybe upset the rhythm a little bit. But since he's come in, I mean, some of the you know, I try and avoid social media as best I can after the game, but some of it you can't help but see. But just some of the online forums and stuff. But some of the things that were getting said about him last week were just scandalous, really. He didn't have a bad game by any stretch against Aberdeen. Obviously, deflections happen. You know, it can happen to the very best of players. You know, that little sort of 15, 20 minute spell where Aberdeen were in the ascendancy and, you know, they got their 2 goals. But to read some of the nonsense that was spotted about him last week, you'd have thought we'd have, you know, signed some guy for Faulthouse Juniors. You know, it was ridiculous, and I thought that's the modern way, I suppose. But yeah, I thought he was excellent from what I've seen. Some fantastic defending, and it was the same. I would say the same for Alex Valle on the left hand side as well. Can't be easy being flung in. Like you say, he was also a debutant against Falkirk as well, but he's just slowly but surely coming in. I think obviously lots of his game he's got to work on, but I think the full back four, I thought Alistair Johnson, despite picking up a yellow card quite, early on in the game, his discipline remained fantastic. It was a brilliant tackle. I think it was just before half time, putting out for a corner. He was a colossus at the back as well. I'd say when he's not, if McGregor's ever not in the team, Johnston's my captain. I would say, and Vi and Scales again, just quiet, assured, and I think all four of them, including and the keeper as well, they can be really proud of their performance.
Yeah, and 100% they can be. You mentioned earlier on about the Europa League final team of Atalanta. Some have moved on.
Mm-hmm.
But during the commentary, they were talking about the replacements that have come in for €20 million plus. So they're replacing players like for like. Do you know what I mean? That's not being around the bush here. They had the top goal scorer in the respective league playing. He had to be took off because he wasn't making an impact. And Celtic got their first clean sheet in the Champions League in 94 years, didn't it? So that's another accolade, which is absolutely fantastic. I think it was the Anderlecht game would have been the last one. Yeah, so that was Rodgers was there as well, but it's still a fantastic achievement. Makeshift back four. And you look at Alex Valle, we'll come on to him as well. A couple of games, there was times he was giving the ball away needlessly, and he was looking a wee bit out of his depth. He looking like he couldn't run. He was always falling and losing his footing. But there's another one who had a kind of coming of age performance against Atalanta. I thought he was. I think he played it more years ahead of him. Do you know what I mean? Like he looks like so assured. You're talking about AJ on the right side. I thought Alex Valle matched that for composure, athleticism. Just get that kind of steeliness to get stuck in and kind of dig in when times are tough. And you wouldn't really associate that. Maybe this is me being ignorant with a graduate from the Barcelona Academy, all being Celtic football and wanting to go up the pitch. But he was doing the hard yards. He was tackling. He was defending. He was helping out his team. He covered for. I think Scales missed the ball and he came in and made a last-ditch challenge as well. So he was doing things like that, kind of reading the plays too. So I seen that Greg Taylor, it's interesting, but was back in training today. Now look, we all love Gregory, but would you throw him straight back in? Would you let Alex Valle keep the shirt? Is he in that territory yet?
Yeah, I would start Valle on Sunday purely for the fact that you would assume at the moment Taylor's not fit. So like every other injured, but you maybe bring him back on with if he makes the team on Sunday or at some point in some of the league games coming up. Yeah, I think Vi's done enough to keep the jersey for the time being. I think the amount of games that we play now, the fact that we're in 4 competitions, I think it's just natural that we're going to have a lot of rotation anyway. And it's the same thing when people say, should it be Hatate or should it be Bernardo, all of these kind of things. The fact is they're all going to play and they're all going to play a lot. Even by, Kyogo started in Dortmund, Ida started on against Atalanta as well.
What did you think about that? What did you think about that decision?
I think I could understand them starting with Kyogo with the idea that we were going to try and play Dortmund at their own game, almost. But by the same, I don't even think it's necessarily Kyogo being dropped. I think it's just a rotation thing, and the fact that we're going to be set, we tweaked it. It wasn't the big makeshift changes that I think some of the media are trying to pat themselves on the back with. Brendan listened to all his critics and suddenly put in started parking the bus. That's not the way that it kind of worked out, even in Red Scotland. That's not how it was. It was tweaks to his system, but there was obviously more a defensive sort of outlook in mind. But Adam Ida does have that kind of physique and presence where he can ruffle up the defenders more than what Kyogo can, and he'd probably seen it as a kind of outball sort of thing. But as I say, I think the way football is now, unless there's there's not really many eyebrows raised when someone doesn't start or someone does start. If especially given the money that we've paid for Adam Ida as well. So if Bernardo starts instead of Engels or Engels over Hatate, all of these kind of things. The fact is we play so many games, we play them, one after the other, and the whole point of having a top draw manager is about how he properly rotates and plays each fixture. Puts the players on the park suit the fixture rather than just playing necessarily on form. But yeah, I think either, from what I could see, he didn't get much of the ball. We didn't have too many runs forward. But I think obviously when Kyogo came on and people were going, oh, look how much difference he's making and all that. But you could turn that the other way around. If Kyogo had started and then maybe we lose, maybe if we had lost a couple of goals, then Kyogo doesn't get the service. Then by the time Ida comes on, people will be like, oh, well, Kyogo's done nothing in the game either. So it's, it swings and roundabouts, they kind of chats. And, me, I'm certainly never going to have any issue with Adam Ida starting, mate. I am president of his fan club.
Oh, I know you are. I think we all like him in the podcast chat anyway. Jamie Brown comes in, great strength and depth. The subs never weaken the team. Yep. Obviously, that question was answered at the end of the transfer window. We finally brought in players of a quality that you could suddenly say that can mix it up with the first team squad. So that is a good position to be in. Jamie, you're right on that front. But what was interesting with Adam Ida was the link up he had with Kasper Schmeichel. Now, what I loved about Kasper Schmeichel, he done an interview after the game, and he was talking about how to set up, and he would always be that spur man in possession, and he had to make the right passes and find the right people at certain times of the match. And what I liked, you mentioned there, Celtic didn't get up the pitch much. That's correct in an instance, but it was always kind of Kasper was trying to fade Ida to kind of chest it, hold it, and then release it to Kuhn or Maeda, and that worked on a couple of occasions. And I just like that because it skipped out the whole panic mode when you're playing out from the back and they're pressing half the pitch. It give you an outlet that Kyogo maybe wouldn't give you. And you mentioned his impact when he came on in the second half, and look, that could be for a multitude of reasons, but one of the main reasons I think is Adam Ida's obviously roughed their defenders up. They may be physically tired and mentally tired trying to mark him. Kyogo's sharp. He's in between the lines. He's making runs in behind. So there's a different variation to their play, and that's good to have. It's good choices to have. And if we look at Schmeichel, now look, this is no slight in Joe Hart at all. And again, I don't want to sound disrespectful because I thought he was unbelievable in co-commentary with TNT Sports. He was saying some really insightful things. But I'm of this opinion. Kasper was pure class against Atalanta. I think that what I liked about him as well, he held the ball. He didn't release it straight away. He let the team calm down, find their positions, find the shape. He picked the right pass. He made saves when he needed to. Yes, none of them were world class, but his positioning sense was great. He was a presence in the box, and he was there for everything. I think that is just as important as having a back four you can depend on, as having a goalkeeper that you can feel confident with. And I think for me, Anthony, that Kasper certainly provides that on them top European nights.
He does, absolutely, mate. And obviously, he's from good stock, given his, given who his father was. But yeah, I think that was one of the things when he first came to the club that we did say, well, it's the fact that he's known for being good with his feet, as well as being, a really good at keeping the ball out of the net as well. And even, like you say, Joe, by his own admission, would always say that was one of the weaker points of his game. And, the Hearts was in the mouth a couple of times domestically and in Europe when it came to Joe with the ball at his feet. And obviously, I think it was, I actually think it might have been Leipzig where we got caught out big time. And Ange's, I think it was his first season in the Champions League. But, these things happen. But yeah, and I do agree as well. I think he's really good on the commentary as well, and at the punditry, it has to be said. It's just one of the guys that carries himself really well, But definitely the transition for Joe Hart into Kasper Schmeichel has been pretty seamless. And like you say, you build for the back, mate. And if you can have proper goalkeeper between the sticks, that can be more than helpful when you're fighting on four fronts. Goes without saying.
Yeah, 100%. Just a quick one. Jamie Brown's mentioned it a few times. Do you think Schmeichel? Now, look again. We're not professional athletes by a long shot, but do you think Kasper Schmeichel's carrying a bit of timber, or is that just his shape? Do you think he's just that kind of average shape?
Not that I would be in any position to judge, to be fair, but I think he's a big guy, and for all we know, maybe that's something that he's been asked to do. Is just that I can't ever remember a time, unless with the exception of maybe when he was at Falkirk when he was about 18, him ever been a slim goalkeeper. He was very slight when he was at Falkirk, but obviously had all the natural ability. But yeah, I don't, off the top of my head, when I see him, and then I remember him during his time at Leicester, I don't see much difference. To be fair, he's a big specimen, that commands the 6-yard box really well, and he's all right with the ball at his feet as well. So yeah, I'd maybe need to have another look, but I don't see him as Arthur Boric 2009, shall we say, because that was definitely carrying one too many bits of timber. But yeah, at the moment I think he's looking all right.
He's a big unit, like you said. The only keeper that I remember, no disrespect by the way, that I remember in the Scottish League, what you could say was carrying timber. Remember that keeper Conrad Logan that played for Hibs?
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he was. He. I mean, yeah. We'll leave that one there. But let's move on to the midfield area. Rio Hatate, Cal McGregor, and Arnie Engels. I want to start with Engels because again, I'm seeing a lot of criticism. I'm seeing a lot of people. Now, I seen a comment today saying Luke McCown's better than Engels. Luke McCown should be starting ahead of him, and Paulo Bernardo. This is the thing with me with Engels, right? He came in, he hit the ground running, right? A lot of players do this, would have that kind of adrenaline hit the first 2 or 3 games. It's pure adrenaline. They're doing things they would normally do. They're trying shots, they're trying passes, blah, 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 to impress the fans, right? And then you hit a wee bit of a plateau where he's finding his feet in the team, the rhythm of the team. And Roger spoke about this today. He had to do the dirty work in the game against Atalanta. He had to mark Lookman. He had to cover the hard yards that he wouldn't normally do in a normal league game. Roger just spoke about the schedule that he's had to change from for 1 game a week with Augsburg to maybe 2 or 3 with Celtic. So there again is a big, massive jump, not level, but in terms of games every other day, how your body's going to cope with that, how you're going to cope with that mentally. That will come in time. Have I been frustrated with Engels? 100%. Have I seen him in games where he's turning on the ball and losing it a few times? Yes. But I've also seen him make defence splitting passes to Kyogo. I've seen him make great tackles on the edge of the box. I've seen him carry the ball long distances. So I've seen enough, in my opinion, that gives me hope for the future. We need to stop focusing that he's our record transfer fee, and because of that, he has to come in and be our star player. That doesn't happen. Look, we paid £11 million, but let's be fair. £11 million in today's market is peanuts. People pay that for reserve players. People pay that for third choice goalkeepers. So automatically, we're thinking as Celtic fans, he has to come in and be our best player or make an impact in every single game. The impact that we don't see, as Roger said, and we've seen in the game, is his tackling, his covering Lookman, helping out AJ at right back position. And maybe he's not involved high up the pitch, that's fair enough, but he was getting in, he was getting stuck in about it. And I think time will tell. I think he'll become a fantastic player. He's in the round the Belgian team, 2 caps already since he's been at Celtic. So, I think that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is, mate. And you've hit the nail on the head many an occasion there. It's just, and like you say, some of the criticism has just been way, way over the top. And when you sometimes read some of the things that gets posted about some of your players, it's like you start to think, do these guys that post this sort of stuff really actually know much about the game that they profess to love, or the players for the club that they profess to love? Because you're absolutely bang on. £11 million is, of course, a significant outlay. It's the most significant outlay that we've ever spent on one player. But like you say, we've got to remember, he's 20 years old. 20, he's no long out his teens. And he's came into the club with that, reputation. He's obviously well thought of, and he was certainly spoke well of when he signed for the club. He's taken that challenge. He wants to be here. He wants to come and prove himself. And I know John was obviously at the wind up in the group chat yesterday, but I have seen a lot of them talk about it, or couldn't lace O'Reilly's boots and all this kind of thing. People need to forget when Matt O'Reilly first came to Celtic. Yes, he had a couple of good games, but then he drifted for a bit because he was only 19, 20 years old when he came to Celtic as well. £11 million is a lot of money, and Celtic, Celtic kind of exchange rate, but £11 million these days is potential. We've signed potential, and so far, like you say, he came in, looked like he was just, seamless transition from O'Reilly right at the start. And like you say, maybe up at Ross County, didn't have the best of games. But then last week against Aberdeen, he played a magnificent pass into Kyogo, who then played it back to Hatate for the first goal. It was an absolutely outstanding pass. That's the kind of thing that we're going to see. You could argue, you make a good point about the whole, some players, burst on the scene and then they kind of, simmer, do just go along a little bit and, it kind of calms down. Rio Hatate was a perfect example of that. Now, I get that there was more mitigating factors than that, with the fact that he just came off a full season in Japan, so he hadn't had any sort of break. But you remember the first 4 or 5 games when we signed him, he'd ran the show at Tynecastle, scored the 2 goals in the 3-0 drubbing of Rangers in the midweek game that put us back on top of the league, and we never looked back. But then come the March, April time, he wasn't doing anything necessarily bad. He just wasn't that explosive best that we know he's capable of. But that's what's going to happen when you sign guys at this age with the potential. They just need to. They're not going to be 8, 9, 10 out of 10s every week. They're going to have games where they don't have the same kind of impact as what they do in others. And that's just what happens when you're 20-year-old and your body's still developing. But the thing is, other 20-year-olds get to develop at clubs where they're going to be allowed to make mistakes to a certain extent. At Celtic Park, not only have you got to, if you're not performing, you're out the team straight away. It's not like you get you're not going to have many opportunities to mess up. But also, it doesn't matter whether you cost £1 million free transfer or £11 million. This club demands success. Success is its oxygen. And, even the biggest of clubs down south, and you maybe take Madrid out of the equation, but most other clubs don't. They might want success every year, but they don't necessarily expect it because they know that there's other. But you do have no room to breathe at Celtic. You have to hit the ground running and you have to be successful straight away. And I think all in all, the young lad's doing more than well. I think he came in, big fee, scored in the Champions League, scored the penalty against Hearts, that the game, it was quite a stuffy game that day. Got an assist in the Champions League, and he's still getting in amongst the goals and doing great passes from the midfield as well. So I've big hopes for Engels, but it's the exact same for Paulo Bernardo as well. And absolutely, I'm a big fan of Luke McCowan as well. He looks like a really talented boy. Well, he's not a boy, he's 25, 26, but he looks like a player who's really good at football, that's won a competition to play for Celtic. Like, he's just buzzing to be here. And that kind of feeling must be, infectious in the dressing room. And he's just, he's in his element at the moment, and long may it continue.
Yep, 100%. Jimmy Brown comes in. Think we need patience with Engels. He will turn good. I thought Coombe was a total waste of money last year, and he's proved me wrong. I think he's proved a lot of people wrong.
Jimmy, yep.
The Celtic Supporters podcast asked us about the Kano Foundation. I believe that's in our group chat at the moment. McGeady will get back to us on that one, but we'll be more than happy to get involved some shape or form. So
I think that seems to be the general consensus,
yeah.
mate. Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye out for that one. I'm sure that'll be a good weekend or a good couple of days for podcasts anyway. But yeah, I mean, you look at it in terms of Engels, right? You look at Rio Hatate. A lot of people in the comments have mentioned Rio Hatate in terms of, I think Red Scotland said it, we need to take care of the ball in Europe. And one of the first kind of things he done against Atalanta was give the ball away. And he done it on a few occasions. He tries to do that body spin, and it doesn't really work sometimes, and he loses the ball and he falls over. And we're talking about Bernard, we're talking about McCowan. Do you think Rio's position's under threat? Could you see that being the one that might kind of see a Bernardo get a full-time position? Or where are you sitting in Rio at the moment?
I think I can't remember who it was that's brought it up on the comments not that long ago. They mentioned about these international breaks, and he's one. It's great, and especially the sort of culture that Japan has. It's we see it as an honour representing your country, but it's a whole different ball game. with the Japanese players, and but I think the Japanese coach is getting a lot of stick over there at the moment, just for the way that he seems to be messing players about. I always find it funny when obviously the media would be more than happy for us to get rid of the likes of Hatate or Kyogo, and they say, oh, it's about because he doesn't get a game to help you for his international career. Yet Daisen Maeda is in the Japanese team every week, so they can't have it both ways. But yeah, I think that most recent trip there, the manager signed Rio Hatate up, especially when he's had a lot of games at the start of the season, and then they've just left him on the bench. So all these air miles are going to add up. It doesn't matter how fit you are, and I think even to an extent probably Daisen Maeda's been looking a little bit like that. I thought last week he looked a bit wasn't at his full pelt speed that we know he can be. And obviously Brendan noticed that and brought James Forrest on about kind of halfway through the second half. But in terms of, like I say, mate, I think it's a great problem to have. You've got McGregor there, you've got Engels, you've got Hatate, but like you say, you've got McCowan there, Bernardo as well. That's 5 really good players vying for 3 spots. That's absolutely the way that that's absolutely, like we always say about we want a good squad where there's not much or if any drop off, depending on what way you play them. I think Rio, like any of the other players, he started the season terrifically. You think back to that goal he took against St Mirren at Love Street. It was absolutely fantastic striking. That he's not went off the boil since then. He's still contributed a lot in the game since. But yeah, like every other player, he's going to have his ups and downs. That's just he's a terrific player, but it's why he's at our level and maybe not the elite level, shall we say? At the next level of club. But yeah, he's a player I love to watch, and I noticed it last year when he was out the team. He obviously had 2 or 3 quite bad injuries last year, and he never really got going. But when he came back, kind of late spring, into the run-in period, you could argue, when he got a real run at it. You think back to that goal he scored with outside his foot in the 3-0 game around that. I think it was the same weekend that Rangers dropped points up at Dingwall, but it was Hatate that got that goal to get things underway at Celtic Park. And I just think, like you say, he does give the ball away a bit, which can be a bit shaky in Europe, but he's also probably the only player capable of finding some of the passes that he does. His vision's, second to none. So, you got to weigh up the pros and cons of that, I suppose, mate, and that's what Brendan gets paid the big bucks for, how to select the best players for each game. But listen, he's a terrific player. He's obviously spoken the press when he's been away on the international break that he would never ever rule out, a move elsewhere to, a club down south or whatever. I think he's certainly good enough to play in the Premier League, so we might well be watching his final season. We just don't know, but definitely whilst he's here, still going to enjoy watching him play, because when he's on form, he's an absolute joy to watch.
I think, like you said, he offers something different than the other midfielders that we have. But maybe McCowan might be more of his ilk, where they can find a pass out of nowhere and kind of have that burst of pace to get away from another midfield player and play that ball into the strikers really quickly. So, look, I love Rio. I think Rio's he's so kind of he is erratic, isn't he? Like one minute he does a world class volley pass against Real Madrid. The next minute he's falling over the ball. So that's just him, and we all love him for it. But it is a good position for Celtic to be in, where he could bring Bernardo onto the pitch, who had a fantastic impact against Atalanta. I thought he was so calm, he was so composed. He took the ball in tight areas. He was finding players. He wasn't wasting the ball, especially in the last 15 to 20 minutes. We needed that. Someone to come on and just take care of it, play the simple pass, hold their players off, and take the sting out of the game. I thought Bernardo done that fantastically well. And we talk about the evolution of the team, and we hear this word learning all the time, about Celtic learning the process in Europe. Do you think we learned from Dortmund? Or again, could this be, look, we'll have to look at it from both sides. Could this be a one-off? Could this be a result which is like, wow, it was great, but the next time we play a heavyweight in Europe, we're going to get spanked again? Or do you think, like, genuinely Rodgers, as you mentioned, tweaked the system a wee bit away from home to kind of counteract some of the movements of some of the players that these heavyweight clubs may have?
I think he'll, like you say, tweak it to suit whatever match we're going up against. But I think regardless of what we do, you mean you look at like you say, Dortmund, perfect example on both fronts. So when we played them, and I still would actually defend Brendan for doing it, even though it clearly didn't work on the night. But I felt he'd earned the right to say, you know what, with the start we'd made to the season, we're going to go and have a go. And despite Dortmund, turning us over, a lot of the errors were, if you were using a tennis phrase, were unforced errors that led to goals. It was us being really, really bad at the basics that led to Dortmund having the result that they do. But then you look at Dortmund themselves, they've went to the Bernabeu on Tuesday night. They've went 2 goals in front, and then with 2/3 of the game to go, they adopted an ultra-defensive approach, try and see the game out. Within a minute and a half, Madrid have scored, and then the floodgates open. So Dortmund themselves, Champions League finalists last year, lost 5 goals and a half to Real Madrid as well, went away from home. So the way I always see it, mate, is it's why I tend, obviously I hate it when it happens, but I never try and get too down about the heavy defeats, because the thing is, the more we're in Europe, the more the chances are that they are going to happen, because these teams aren't just capable of doing it to us or teams in the competition that we would say are maybe on our level when it comes to income, etc. They're capable of doing it to each other. When one of them are in the mood, you've seen what Real Madrid done to Borussia Dortmund, which was the final of the competition last year. The night after, or was the same night, I can't remember now, all the nights have bled into one. Barcelona went and dismantled Bayern Munich by 4 goals as well. So, these results are going to happen. And obviously, I hate it. It's never nice when it happens to us. But I'm just aware that these teams are capable of doing it. But definitely, I think there's some people that want us to still stick to the Lisbon Lions outlook, shall we say, 2-3-5. This is how we play football: attack, 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 kind of, or Angie's way sort of thing. And then there's other ones that want us to do a mixture of sort of Gordon Strachan, Neil Lennon type tactics, shutting up shop, being determined, hoping for the best. I think on Wednesday night you've maybe seen a little bit of a combination of the both, and maybe that'll be our template going forward. And there'll be nights where it works, and we might not even get a draw. There'll be nights where we maybe come away with a win, and we think we've cracked the code, and then 2 weeks later we might go away somewhere and get turned over. It's just what happens at this level. But I think what we've shown, without doubt, over the first 3 games, despite the defeat, which it was tough to take. I think 4 points for 3 games, especially with 2 of them being away from home, I think we've shown that we more than deserve our place at the table.
Well, we've matched our points total in the Champions League from last season, albeit that was
there you go.
After Perfect. 3 games, which is good. The CSP, kind of backing up what you're saying, 4 points from the first 3 games is exactly what I expect. The next 2 games at home make the Atalanta result so much better. Celtic 8 got into the Dortmund game. I think the pre-season in America gave Brendan and the team a false sense of confidence. Look, that could have happened, but I think what Tony's saying there is correct. I think we've seen a combination of defensive security and being in the right places, closing the ball down, heading the ball clear of the box, doing the dirty work, and then we've seen the breakaway. We've seen Kuhn, we've seen Mieta with their pace, and I just thought what kind of annoyed me was just take that curve. I mean, find the ball, find the pass, find your man, because I think what Roger said is correct. We were panicked at certain stages of the game, and I think it's looming in the back of their minds about Dortmund. Just do the safe thing. When all they really had to do was turn around, face the ball, face the play, look up the pitch, and you're finding the gaps in between the Atalanta. They're coming towards you. There's space to exploit. There's space to do, and maybe in future games that will come. But yeah, I mean, 4 points after 3 games. Our next game at home against Leipzig, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously
So
they've had, and of course they've had a really disappointing start. But we've seen what Leipzig can do. Even Paul, we've seen what Leipzig can do even just a couple of years ago at Celtic Park, and I think for most of the game we matched them. But I think that was the night. I think that Werner come off the bench and he scored the goal. And I think I remember it was me, you, and someone else that was on the reaction. The next night, and I says, "Well, that just shows you we've done everything right." But
mhm.
the only difference is I think that was Angie's first season. We weren't clinical enough, and their star striker, who's accumulated £80 million in transfer fees, was the difference. So that's the levels that we're at. So I know Leipzig maybe aren't quite the team that they were a couple of years ago, but definitely we'll still need to be on our toes. But you're right, mate. It's just about trying to, like you say, not being panicked and just trying to. I always try and describe it as sometimes watching Celtic, even when they have a good night, when it's like for against Atlanta, it's almost like someone who's just about halfway through their first block of driving lessons. So they've got all the core parts, they know what they're doing roughly, but it's just sometimes it doesn't quite flow. Whereas then you look at a team like Real Madrid, and they're like a seasoned F1 driver. They can just switch on like that and without panicking, they just know what they're doing. But yeah, we seem to have we definitely got the clutch right, shall we say, on Tuesday night or Wednesday night. But as I say, we've got something tangible to build on from the home result against Bratislava and the point and the performance on Wednesday night. So we've got and still 3 home games to come as well. So we did
Yeah.
say, to be fair, even with the fact that we got a point on Wednesday night, we did say even after the Dortmund game that our campaign won't be defined by the Dortmund result or the Atalanta result. It'll be on how we do with the other games, especially the home games. And we've obviously got off to a good start with the 3 points against Bratislava, but it's imperative we try and keep doing that and keep putting more points on the board as the games come thick and fast.
And as you said, points turn into money as well. And Celtic are on track to make over 50 million quid from this Champions League campaign, which is fantastic. Pays all the transfer fees back as well. Hopefully, we can continue that model for many years. But yeah, great result. 4 points after 3 games. We'll park the Champions League chat until our next game at home against RB Leipzig. And we'll take a wee turn here. It came out recently that Aiden McGeady has retired from football. I think his last club was United under Scott Brown, I believe, but then he became like technical director and still was playing. I don't know how that worked, but it did.
No,
He's eventually he's hung up his boots. And just a quick chat about him. I mean, we talk about players, and I always remember in the Champions League that game against AC Milan.
Amazing.
He absolutely tore Maldini. Oh, he ripped him up that game, didn't he? He was just, I think it was that young playing without fear and all the skills that he had. The McGeady spin, he was just fantastic. And you look at his impact at us, albeit maybe didn't end as well as he may have hoped, going to Spartak Moscow and kind of pushing his way in the club for big wages, and that's his own prerogative. But Ian McGeady, you have fond memories of him?
Absolutely. There's no doubt his name will go down in Celtic folklore, if perhaps not legend, of course. But the thing is, I mean, I was 16 when he first came through at Celtic, and I remember his first match. He scored in his debut against Hearts at Tynecastle. He took it really well. I think he's maybe only a year older or two than me, so maybe just turned 18 when he got his debut. And obviously he wears his jersey the same way that Jinky used to wear it as well, the long sleeve but tucked, 3/4 of the way up. And he's small, he's kind of slight, but he was just a bag of tricks those early years. And you got to remember, obviously, he came into the team, he had a couple of appearances, and then obviously Henrik left that summer. Martin stuck around, but obviously the main bulk of the team were still together. But players like Alan Thompson, Didier Agat, etc., that team was tired. But Martin, and that's his prerogative, and who's am I to tell Martin O'Neill how to run a football team? But it just felt like at that early years, I think it was I think Strangelove is bringing up in the comments, great Glasgow word, gallus. He just had that. Doesn't matter whether you're, a Hearts centre half or your Paolo Maldini. I'll take you on. Just give me the ball and I'll get past you. It was that great entertainment side of it, and obviously then Martin left, and then obviously Sean Maloney had his real kind of period in the sun under Gordon Strachan in that first year. Then he got a wee bit more injury prone, and then obviously moved on to Villa, and that was around the time where McGeady was really coming to the fore, and you got to credit the late great Tommy Burns with that as well. Aiden's on record several times to say that and him and Gordon Strachan's fallouts are well documented.
Well, Tony, do you think that Strachan stifled him?
Not particularly, no. And
No.
I think there's a great clip that I think perfectly sums up the difference. Gordon Strachan's teams were always about digging in deep, fitness, etc. But obviously, everybody's got to play their part. And Aiden McGeady, although the same interview, he's brilliant at the way he takes Kenny McIntyre to the cleaners about obviously some of the other stuff we might come on to in a minute, about the abuse he received. But he talks about a period where it was a game against Dunfermline. Now, we actually ended up winning the game, and he scored, I think it was not long before Christmas, he actually scored the goal. It was 2-0 up and everyone was fine. But it was around a period where we were losing quite a lot of late goals and dropping silly points around that time. And basically, Dunfermline scored with about a minute to go. So nothing happened after it, but it's a bit of a nervy finish, shall we say. And Neil Lennon apparently was going absolutely bonkers at him, going, no blocking that cross kind of thing. And McGeady's response apparently was it's no my job to pick up the winger. And I was like, well, in that exact statement, that's exactly why you and Gordon Strachan wouldn't have got on, because that's not how it doesn't matter whether you're the superstar winger or whatever. If the player is closest to you, you need to close him down, or you need to make an attempt to close him down. But I think obviously the two of them are really strong personalities, and there was a clear personality clash there. But I think Tommy, whilst he was there and whilst his health was still with him, he was that perfect buffer between the two.
Yeah.
And that's where you really seen the best of Aiden McGeady. And then obviously one of the other big criticisms, especially in those couple of years, maybe about 2008, he was often regarded as being missing against Rangers, but then of course he followed that up with a man of the match performance and scoring the goal in the League Cup final in 2009. So, he came to the fore. I think, to be fair, when Neil Lennon got the job, he obviously wanted to rebuild the team, and Spartak, sorry, I'm saying Lokomotiv, that's who O'Connor went to. Spartak Moscow were offering a record fee at the time, and it wasn't in the days where we had excess money to spend. And basically, I think Neil Lennon was told, I think he was encouraged to sell McGeady as much as anything else. But McGeady, he got caught up in a lot of issues. He was, and I appreciate he was a young guy, don't get me wrong, and some of the abuse he must have taken must have been horrific, especially in Glasgow. But he was caught up in the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl maybe one too many times, and anyone that's same age as me that maybe did see him the odd time out in a Glasgow nightclub, I don't want to use the phrase brought it on himself, but there was some times when he didn't help himself either, shall we say. Not that I'm condoning him getting some of the stick that he got, but there's ways and means of dealing with that kind of thing. So, ironically, probably a move to Russia wasn't a bad move. It helped take him out the firing line a wee bit. But listen, I think there was chat that there maybe would have been the odd time that the opportunity to come back, and it just never quite materialised. And listen, he's a great entertainer. He always, I don't think he ever really talks the club down or anything like that. He always comes across pretty well in the punditry and stuff. Although his clobber in that last game at Easter Road was absolutely diabolical. That's coming from me, right enough. But he gave us some great years, and obviously, got us some money for Neil to reinvest into the team. So, and for all the disgusting abuse he got for the mainstream media, as well, for the crime of playing for a country that he was eligible to represent, I think he came across brilliant in that interview when Kenny McIntyre, self-proclaimed Rangers fanatic, acted as though he was shocked that Aiden McGeady got stick when he played at all the other away teams. And Aiden McGeady, if anybody's not seen the clip, I would recommend it. It'll be on YouTube, but he's absolutely brilliant at taking McIntyre to the cleaners in that one. But he's not a club legend by any stretch, but certainly a great entertainer. He'll be remembered by those that were there to see him play.
100%. And the CSP, first player to get him off his arse in years. That's how I felt about him. I loved him. Obviously, what age had I been when he first came on? So, hold on. 9 or 10? I was when he
were
first.
The perfect age for him, mate. You were it would just be that kind of young boy coming. And it's one of the frustrating things sometimes with Celtic fans. We love to see a academy player come through. Latterly, James Forrest was the same. We love seeing these young boys coming through, but especially on the wings, they're also the ones that get the most abuse. And by the way, abuse is not too strong a term for some of the stuff that both him and James Forrest have had to put up with over the years. But I think possibly Aiden was, he was off the conveyor belt before James was. And I reckon probably for a player like James Forrest, McGeady would have been a great example to say, you've got all the natural talent, but you need to keep working hard as well. And McGeady's game changed throughout his time at the club as well. And wish him well.
Yeah, because you kind of latch on to these players, especially as a young kid watching. He's homegrown, he's coming for the academy. You're like, wow, unbelievable! It shows you it's cliche, but your dreams can come true. You play for your boyhood club and all that type of stuff. And you mentioned the abuse side of things, and obviously one of the main starting points for that would have been, as you mentioned, him choosing to play for Ireland over Scotland. Why do you think? Now, I think we had Scotland, or might have been Plunge. They were alluding to the fact who may have been in the SFA at that time probably influenced McGeady's decision in terms of the wrong organisation to be a part of. But it was met with hostility, and then it turned from him being a young kid coming through to him being villainized at every away ground, him getting coins through at him, whatever it may be at grounds. And obviously you have to add on to that as well the Irish factor. It turned into sectarian hatred at times. We've seen that with Lenny, McCord. You could go through the history of Celtic Football Club. There's been so many accounts of it. But why do you think that sparked it? Why do you think that one choice really fucked people off?
Well, it's plain and simple, I suppose, mate. Anti-Irish racism is the only acceptable racism left in Scotland. It's as simple as that. It's certainly amongst civic Scotland. But the thing was, and he explains it well in the interview I've mentioned as well. You got to remember when he scored that goal against Hearts for Celtic, he was 18 years old, but he'd been playing for. I think I think maybe even both sets of grandparents, certainly on his dad's side, are both Irish. So he wasn't one of these kids that spent, like, whenever the school holidays hit, he went to Ireland. So he spent as much of his childhood, his own childhood memories, etc., in Ireland as he did in Scotland. But the Irish FA had earmarked him from a younger age. So he was playing for Ireland when he was a teenager. Like talking early teenagers, maybe even pre-teen. I don't even know if there is internationals under 13. But you know what I mean? From the earliest possible stage, he was getting picked for Ireland. The Scottish FA did not even approach him when he was talking to 16, 17. He was not approached to represent Scotland until he scored that goal for Celtic at an 18-year-old. And I think by that point, he'd already says, no, well, I'm maybe even selfishly, Ireland had certainly at that time had a far better team than Scotland and had more of an opportunity to go to major tournaments. So you just take that one part of it. But the other thing, he feels as much Irish as he does Scottish. So why should he? And as he says, why should he not represent the country that he feels proud to represent? But you can't explain that in a nuanced, civilized manner to people that read the Sun every day and get their information from the likes of Bill Leckie. And what happened to him. It maybe because it was the Republic of Ireland, not Northern Ireland. He maybe didn't get quite the same level as obviously what Neil Lennon got from some right serious stuff. But going to Hamilton Accies in an away game and getting abuse for Hamilton Ackie fans because he plays for Scotland over Ireland, despite the fact James McCarthy got the exact same abuse, and he was playing for Hamilton Accies at the time. It's just it's disgusting, but that's exactly why it happened. And like you say, things I think are still. It is constantly evolving, and you look at players like Callum McGregor, Kieran Tierney, and all that they represent Scotland, and they represent Scotland well, and fair play to them. But even 20 years ago, things were different, and anyone knows anything about the SFA, there absolutely was political reasons why Celtic players, or a very limited number of Celtic players, were ever picked for the national team. It's reasons like that why a large section of the Celtic support still don't really have any affinity with the national side, and that's their gift, I suppose. And whilst it might not be the view I share, I can certainly understand that reasoning, because the treatment of Celtic players throughout the generations is nothing short of scandalous.
Yeah, and as Plums McNugget put up there, wee Jenky only got 23 caps. It's madness how the likes of that Lisburn Land team didn't get any more caps, and Aiden McGeady getting the abuse he did. But it's something we're all so used to as Celtic supporters, the abuse and sectarian shit that our Irish players in particularly have to go through. It's absolute madness. Like you said, it's the only form of racism that still seems accepted in parts of wherever you're from in this island or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But yeah,
this United Kingdom of Equals is, I think that's the latest buzz phrase they're coming away with, isn't it?
Whatever absolutely. They want to call it, pish. But we'll move on. We're in action at the weekend. You mentioned the players. We're back. We're at Fir Park Sunday. Is that a 12 o'clock kickoff? Isn't it? It'd be lunchtime.
3 o'clock, mate. It's Sky Sports.
3 o'clock. Right,
it's
okay.
a double header this weekend. So for the opening match on the lunchtime kickoff is Hibs v Hearts. So we've got an Edinburgh derby for Easter Road, and then straight after that, Fir Park for Motherwell versus Celtic. So it's I think it's safe to say once I'm taking Jude to his match in the morning, after that could be a day in front of the TV for yours truly.
Day up with the feet up and a couple of beers, eh? But get into the game. Great result in Atalanta, like we spoke about at length. Motherwell, in different start of the season, they had a lot of injuries. The only reason I know that because I watch Open Goal every Monday, and Hatate always talks about the injuries that Motherwell have. But their players are starting to come back. They've picked up a few results, and I mean, going to Fir Park it's either goes one or two ways. It's either tight or we absolutely blow them away, and it's usually game over by half time. What are you expecting to get into this game, Tony?
No, it is a game, like you say, even Brendan, in both spells, it's a stadium with 2 stoppage time winners. The 2 games we played there last season. Obviously Matt O'Reilly and Adam Ida coming up trumps with the points, the goals that to get us the points. But I think it'll be. There's a good chance it will be like that kind of way again. I think possibly be a couple of changes from the midweek, just to try and freshen things up a bit. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if it's a close game. But hopefully, I think we'll have enough quality, touch wood, on the day to get the 3 points going into the midweek card next Wednesday.
Who are we playing next Wednesday?
Home to Dundee, mate. And
that's it. Was in my mind.
Obviously, our biggest rivals are hosting Rangers at Pittodrie as well. So it's.
I like that. Yeah, it could be if Jimmy Tillon and Aberdeen keep it up. But I mean, for me myself, look, I don't mind Fir Park. Usually the pitch is in good order. Stuart Catwell, Motherwell under Stuart Catwell do give us a game now and then, so it could be a tasty fixture. I think there's going to be a fair amount of goals. If I'm going to go lineup prediction score, I would go Casper Schmeichel, Alzer Johnson, Trusty Scales, Alex Faye, McGregor, Engels, Bernardo, Kuhn, Kyogo, and Dyson Maeda, and my score prediction would be 4-1 to Celtic. What about yourself, Tony?
Yeah, but my only that was pretty much my team. The only thing I think he might start James Forrest on the left, just then maybe bring Maeda on like he did the second, because I think Maeda was looking like he was running out of steam a little bit the last couple of games. So I think he might start with James Forrest, but then I think Maeda will feature at some point, mate. But the rest of the team, that was my team. I think Bernardo will come in. As I say, I think the back four still picks itself. Do you think McCowan might come in? You never know. You just never know. And it's definitely hopefully got the makings of a good game. But as long as we get the 3 points, that's all that matters. I'll say I'll go for my favourite. I'll go a hassle-free 2-0. I'll just be
Franny.
Yeah, I'm doing a Franny. Yep.
Yeah, I like it. Playing it safe. Before we head off, are you reading too much into the fact that Rogers brought Palma on before Forrest?
Not particularly. No, I think possibly
No.
you got to say Palma. Obviously, James isn't on tonight, but obviously had his magnificent display against Sligo Rovers in Ireland, and he's sort of not been too bad in the couple of brief moments he's had since then. I think he's one of the players. He's going to get a chance. It's just all about how he goes with it. And it was maybe just the way the game was playing out that Palmer maybe felt he could maybe do something, a wee bit of magic or whatever on Wednesday night. But I think all in all, James is still above him in the pecking order, I think.
Yeah, so do I. I hope Palma leaves in January. That's no disrespect. I'm just done with him. But look, again, that's the end of the podcast. It's the first time, well, not the first time, since a week we got two podcasts in a week. So it's good to get that back again. Absolutely. Have you enjoyed it, Tony?
Oh, brilliant, mate. It's been good being on, shooting the breeze, and it's always good. We're on so often after a disappointing European result, so it's nice to mix it up a wee bit and something to build on for the next game, and also hopefully 3 points on the domestic front as well. But the games are coming thick and fast. Obviously, full card midweek next week, and then we've got a semi-final the week after. It's just non-stop at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Looking forward to the next week as well. Well done, lads. Crack was good. Yep, mate. As always, we enjoy you being with us in the comments as well, and thanks for joining us on this Friday night. But yeah, as I've been saying the last couple of times, we are still, again, restricted schedule. It will come back to the fullness in time. Just people have a lot of stuff going on, so but we'll get there. We'll hopefully get 2 out next week, and we'll talk about the midweek game, and obviously, hopefully, a good 3 points at Fair Park on Sunday. But look, until next week, we'll let you know when we're on the social media channels. But stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.